Are you wondering what are the main language milestones that a child should have in place as they make the exciting transition from preschool or pre-kindergarten to kindergarten? Well, I have the answers to that, and I focus on mainly three milestones: expressive language milestones, or what the child says; receptive language milestones, or what the child is hearing or understanding; and social language milestones, or how the child is interacting with other peers or other adults. So we're going to talk about each of those three. Hi, my name is Amini. I'm a speech and language pathologist with several years of experience. I've worked in schools, I've worked in clinics, and I have my own private practice, Smarter Speech, in the Bay Area, where I work with children and their parents to maximize speech and language development across all ages. And my mission with this channel is to empower parents, especially those with children under the age of 5, because that's when a child's brain is developing the most rapidly, and language development is very linked to cognitive development and learning foundations for later on. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first milestone, expressive language, or what the child says, that I look for as a child is turning 5, is between the age of 5 and 5.5, or is starting kindergarten, is the ability to retell a small story. So when I say small story, it can be something very simple. Like I have a Pete the Cat book here. I love these because the stories really do tend to be quite easy to retell and to understand and to remember the details for. So Pete loses one button, then he loses another, and then he loses another, and last he's left with just his belly button. I also tend to look for retelling stories where the components are the same across different parts. So with Pete and his groovy buttons, it's the same story with each button. So nothing really changes, making the retell much easier. In terms of how much help a child should have while they're retelling a story, if they're just turning 5, it is not a big deal for you to be helping them and for you to be prompting them to retell the story. Also, it's a good idea to see whether your child can retell a story after you've told it at least a few times. So maybe you guys have read it together for a week or so, and then you can ask your child to retell what happens in Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. Another thing to keep in mind is a child can use the book as guidance and prompting. So they can turn through the page and tell the story as they turn the page. And they can forget a little and they can have some prompting. That's all fine. But again, I am really just looking for that retell. Another easy thing that you can check for is fairy tales, because children nowadays hear the same fairy tales over and over again. They read them over and over again, or maybe they watch them on YouTube over and over again. So Three Little Pigs is a great one to see whether your child is retelling stories, because the same story again happens at each of the 3 parts. So there's the straw house, same part. There's the stick house, same story. And there's the brick house, same story, but just with small modifications. So, and the last thing that I would say about retelling stories is I also check to see if a child is using past tense verbs when they recall. So it should be the wolf blew the house down, not the wolf blows the house down, or it should be the pig built the house, not the pig is building the house. So that's another thing that I keep an eye out for, because past tense starts coming in a little bit earlier than 5, and hopefully they're using that in their retell. The second thing that I look for is a child's ability to follow 3-step directions. So when you look at 3-step directions, this is super important because as a child is approaching kindergarten, most of the things that a teacher is going to tell them to do is going to have multiple steps. So using directions with keywords like first, then, and last, and seeing if your child can remember and follow is a really good thing to check their readiness for kindergarten. When you say first, then, and last, you can repeat the direction a few times. You can even model or demo the direction a few times, but after that, your child should be able to follow along. One great way of testing this is just with board or card games. So I love this game, Smelly Socks. And if you look at this gameplay, it is a very simple 3-step direction. So what a child has to do is they have to say they have a monster. Each of them is going to get a sock on their turn. So the first step is pick a sock. The next step is to see if the sock matches the sock that they already picked. Does it match? And if it doesn't match, then they have to put the sock away. So that's 3 steps. Take the sock, check if it matches, and then put it away. Or first, take the sock, then check if it matches, and last, put it away. Is your child able to understand that and follow that for the entirety of the game? First, check the sock, pick the sock, then check to see if it matches, last, put it away or keep it there. So here, last is going to be keep it there. So any sort of games that are meant for children above the age of 3 tend to be great for checking following 3-step directions because they often involve at least a couple of steps, 3 or more steps to finish a turn and then to move to the next person. Another way to check following 3-step directions is to give the directions while you're coloring. So first, color the eyes, then color the nose, and last, color the mouth. You can see if your child, after a demo or after repeating a couple of times, will follow. As a child gets older, so as they are approaching 5.5 and maybe getting to the end of the 5s, you would want to be prompting and modeling less. So you should just be able to say the first, then last, 1 or 2 times, maybe model once, but you don't really have to model, and see if your child is following the directions. So that's the second one, receptive language, following 3-step directions. The last thing that I check for is having conversations. So when a child turns 5, normally they should be able to hold a conversation with a peer and an adult for at least a couple of minutes. So 2 to 3 minutes is what I look for. And obviously, making conversation with a kindergartner can be challenging. For example, when you ask them what happened at school, it's pretty normal to just get a 1-word response. So how do you look for conversation ability? Well, you can watch them in their daily routines, or you can kind of catch them off guard when they're playing. So say you have a toddler cooking set or you have a toy cooking set. This is a great time for me to check if a 5-year-old has conversation ability. So maybe I'm putting the vegetables in the soup and I'll say, oh, I like these. Do you like peas? And see what they say. Maybe they'll say, no, I don't like them, or my mom makes them, or something like that. Or maybe I'll say, well, this onion is not chopped. Should we put it in just like it is, or should we put it in while we cut them? Should we cut the onion? And then the child might say, I like the cut onion, or can I please cut the onion? So in this, what happened is you went through 2 back and forth conversation turns. So usually when I'm playing or some other activity that's not that stressful, I'm really looking for that back and forth. Does the child listen to the things I'm saying, listen to my prompts and respond to them and engage with them? So that's a really nice organic way to check and see how a child is able to sustain a conversation. So just like with adults, food can bring out a lot of stories and a lot of talk. So next time you're playing with your child, just look for that. The other option is just to watch them playing with other kids, see if they're able to sustain a conversation for a couple of minutes. Those are our 3 milestones. Now, what should you do if you're worried about one of these 3? Well, like anything, milestones are just a guideline, so you don't need to freak out as soon as a child turns 5, saying that they don't have a certain milestone and everything is wrong. But at the same time, if you continue to see that your child is not acquiring that milestone as the months go by, that is a good thing to mention to a teacher, to mention to a pediatrician, or maybe to even get an assessment with a local speech therapist or speech and language pathologist. The reason is a child's brain is developing very rapidly now. You want to reach out sooner than later. All right, so I hope that this video helped you. Some other resources that I have that can help you get your child ready for kindergarten in terms of language are linked in the description box below. There's our mailing list. There's our ebook on kindergarten language development tips. There's our course, Parent Education on Kindergarten Language Development. And of course, I've linked some of the toys that I've used in this video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this helped you, and happy talking.